And today what we'll do, we have a hybrid version. So we have people socially distanced here at the Aquatic Center, and then we also have folks that are watching on Facebook Live. Jerry will help moderate the questions, so we'll take questions from the live audience as well as from Facebook. So as we go, we'll go through, give you an update on what's happening in Lake Havasu City, and then afterwards we'll answer any questions that you may have on anything we covered or otherwise that's within Lake Havasu City. So we'll start with the COVID update. Obviously, we had a really high spread of COVID that was happening in November, December, into January. I am happy to say that we are starting to see some declines, but that is a sign of good news, but we still encourage people to follow the proper mitigation strategies. Obviously, staying home when you're not feeling well, washing your hands regularly, wearing a face covering where appropriate, and socially distancing. So we'll be able to get through this if we continue to follow those mitigation strategies, and hopefully these trends will start or continue to go downward. Just a couple of numbers. On Thursday of every week, the Arizona Department of Health Services updates their numbers for COVID. They're monitoring 3 different areas. So it's cases per 100,000, the positivity, and then COVID-like illness at the hospital. And so those were what the business metrics were to reopen back in the spring and throughout the summer. And then we kind of lost track of what those numbers were because the numbers were just so widespread, and it seemed like everybody was coming down with COVID. But they still do report those and update those every Thursday. So our current numbers are we're at 478 per 100,000 in Mojave County. That's down from 675 the week prior. Our percent positivity is at 20.4%, so that means 20.4% of all people that get a COVID test, it comes back positive. That's down from 23.6 the week prior. And then our COVID-like illness that are presenting at the hospitals is at 12.5, and that's down from 14.6 the week prior. So we are starting to see those declines. And again, I thank all of the citizens of Lake Havasu for following the proper mitigation strategies. There is some light at the end of the tunnel, so please let's not give up and keep moving forward. Moving on then to vaccines, the vaccine distribution has started. The way that works is it is distributed, the number of doses of vaccine come from the federal government to the state of Arizona. The state of Arizona then distributes them to the county. And so the County Department of Public Health is the agency that then distributes them to different providers throughout the county so that doses can get into the citizens that are looking for that vaccine. The city has partnered with the county and worked really hard with providers, and we've been able to set up all of the logistics, everything logistically that is needed for vaccination clinics, vaccine providers, all of those types of things. The only challenge is we're not getting enough doses. And so there are not enough doses, and our citizens are finding it very, very frustrating, going from website to website, telephone call to telephone call, and not being able to get an appointment. And so we have been working with those partners. Again, the only person that doesn't have a seat at this table is the city, but we're rattling cages as much as we can to ensure that our citizens that want the vaccine can have access to the vaccine, and we'll continue to provide updates in that area. The most up-to-date information on vaccines would be at the mojavecounty.us website. So that's the home website for the Department of Public Health in our county, and that will have the most up-to-date information on vaccines. So a couple of comments about how the vaccine distribution rollout is going. Started with phase 1A, which was frontline medical workers, the people that really are on the front line, EMS, police officers, those folks. Moving into 1B, and there was a period in 1B. 1B is really wide. It's where most, a good percentage of citizens fall into. So 1B are residents that are over 65, essential service workers, educators, all of those types of folks are in 1B. Since it's so wide, there was about a week that they had 1B open for all 1B participants, and then they had to go to a 1B prioritization. And so now 1B prioritization is police officers and citizens that are 75 years and older. So there was a little bit of confusion there for that 1 week, and that's what that was, is they're prioritizing the 1B into subsections to ensure that the most vulnerable can have access to the vaccine. So I don't know, Jess, if you have any comments. You've been right by my side through most of those meetings, so I don't know if you have any comments on COVID or vaccines.
No, I think you hit on it, Mayor. I think the amount of research that you've done, I don't think you can measure it in hours. It's more like in weeks, so that appreciate all the efforts in that regard. But I think just kind of reiterate that point, because we do have residents and folks that contact the city asking us questions about COVID numbers or vaccination availability, those types of things too. We do our best to do our research, ask the questions, as you said, rattle the cages. But the best point of contact for vaccines, COVID updates, things like that is going to be through the county. They did set up that hotline. I think we posted that on our Facebook page. It's on the county's website, and I believe on their Facebook page as well too. So we'll continue to rattle the cages and ask the questions and see what we can do to assist in every effort that we can from the city's perspective.
Yeah, great. Thank you. All right, moving on to a couple of topics within the city. We had our annual planning session. This is the opportunity for the mayor and council to meet with city staff, get updates, and then provide direction as the city staff starts the budget process. I believe last time we met, we talked about that it was coming up. So it has happened, and I'll give you just kind of a brief rundown of what we discussed. One of the largest areas was the utility rate study. And so in this format and others, we've talked for many years about the expiration of the Irrigation and Drainage District, otherwise known as the IDD. Just for some historical perspective, the IDD was initially set up by Robert McCulloch when he was founding Lake Havasu City as basically the first quasi-government for Lake Havasu City. He was able to do it by putting a sod farm, if you could believe it, in the middle of the desert, a sod farm out on the island, and create the IDD. What that provided was for a property tax that was able to help fund sewer infrastructure in our community. And so the initial sewer infrastructure is in basically the downtown region, the first tracts of homes here. So on Smoke Tree, Swanson, those areas have had sewer since its inception. What the IDD does is it contributes about $5.8 million through that property tax to our water fund each year. So with that to expire, the reason why it's expiring is that when the citizens voted to incorporate Lake Havasu City in 1978, that was part of that resolution, that the IDD would be set to absolve at that point. However, at that point, it had debt. And you can't absolve an organization if it has debt, and the debt was associated to the initial infrastructure that was used to put in the initial sewer. So at that point, it continued on, and now we're at the point where the debt will be paid off, so the IDD will go away. Since the late 70s, or I guess late 60s, when the IDD was put in place, state law has changed, and IDDs are not a thing anymore. And we've looked at other districts or other mechanisms to be able to put to regain that $5.8 million into the water system. And there really weren't any viable, good solutions that were available out there. So Jess and his team commissioned a utility rate study, and what that was going to look at is how do we replace that $5.8 million, and how do we take into account all of the capital improvements that we're going to need in the water system and account for water usage. And we had a consultant that came and gave a presentation and was able to give some pretty good options that create equity in the system for all users and ratepayers, and also allows us to continue to operate the system with that $5.8 million no longer being collected through property taxes. So I'll turn it over to Jess to give a little bit of details about the utility rate study and kind of next steps on that.
Yeah, sure, I appreciate that. So I think taking a big step back in terms of that utility rate study is that we want to identify what the cost of the water system for the city and what the cost of the sewer system for the city is going to be over the long term. So we're basically, it's a nonprofit fund. We're not a for-profit organization, so we want the rates that come in to pay for the system. We don't want anything more than that, and we certainly don't want anything less than that, because then that's going to impact the services that we provide. So we're literally talking about the water that comes out of the faucet and the wastewater that goes down the toilet, and making sure that those systems are consistent for our residents, for our business owners, and if we're going to attract new businesses to Havasu, we want to make sure that we have consistent quality services in those regards. So from the city's perspective, from the staff's perspective, we take a big step back and identify the cost of providing that service over the course of the next 10 years. So that's not just the individuals and the employees, but it's also the tools and resources. It's the maintenance of the 400 and some miles of water lines, and additionally sewer lines within the community. We have water tanks throughout the community. We have a water treatment plant, which is unique for cities to have. There are only a handful of those will have that type of a treatment plant that we have here in Lake Havasu City. So we take all that into account, and then we identify, okay, these are the dollars that we need to provide services and make sure we're maintaining and improving and upgrading and keeping everything consistent over the course of the next 10 years. And then we take a step back and say, okay, these are the dollars that we're going to need for that to happen. And then we engage the next phase, which is, okay, so how are these rates applied to the community? Right now, the city has a winter averaging program. Is that the best course of action for that to take place moving forward? So we're engaging the public and looking at the data and to see if that's the best approach. For those that don't know, the winter averaging is essentially a program that was put into place because for those folks that have pools and for landscaping, if I'm paying sewer based on my water usage, why am I paying for sewer when I'm landscaping my yard or filling the pool and so forth? So December through March, we take those months, we throw out the highest month of usage, and we use that average, the winter average, to account for the sewer rates for the balance of the year. But what does that do? That helps have that conversation about landscaping and filling the pool and so forth. But we have a lot of vacation homes in Lake Havasu City. About a third of the homes in Lake Havasu City are considered vacant by the U.S. Census. Not vacant because they're dilapidated or so forth, but because they're owned by owners that utilize them for short-term rentals. They're vacation homes or second homes from people coming in from California or other states across the country or the world. And so they benefit greatly, right, from that winter averaging, because if they're visiting in the summer months and they're not utilizing their home in the winter, then they're going to see lower sewer rates in the summer months. So that's just, I got in the weeds there a little bit too, but that's some of the conversations that we're having in terms of trying to identify funding for the system, but do so in a way that's fair and consistent for the user. We're all users, right? We all get a monthly bill, and we want to make sure that that makes sense kind of in the path forward. Last thought on that is Havasu and Lake Havasu City, we haven't touched the water or sewer rates. They've been stagnant for a number of years, going back 10 years, so 10 plus years. And sometimes when you see a system that will adjust by 1% or 2%, every year to keep up with the cost of the index and the GDP and so forth, we haven't done that. And then at the same time, we have the expiration of the irrigation drainage district. And so then that's $5.7 million that goes onto your property tax bill they'll be taken off the property tax bill. And then we have to look at how we break even on that endeavor through the rate program. So that's a little bit about the rate study. I could go on, but I think I'm too far into the weeds unless anybody has questions.
Yeah, so the next step on the utility rate study is community engagement. And on February 19th, there's a community engagement opportunity.
Yeah, so we talked about it at the retreat and identified two options on the water side and two options on the sewer side. And then we're going to present those two options each to the community on February 19th. It'll be held in this room here at the Relics and Rods room at the Aquatic Center. And that, I believe it's going to be from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. So please come in and engage, learn, engage, and ask questions and provide that input. It's designed so that everybody doesn't have to be here at one time. So we'll have presentations, a handful of presentations. So if you show up sometime between 3 and 6, don't have to stay for the whole time. But then you can learn, and we'd greatly appreciate your input.
Yeah, thank you. So we've been working on this for about 2.5, 3 years about what the solution was going to be with the expiration of the IDD. The consultant has done a really great job, provided some options, again, that create equity in the system. So yes, we will see the rates go up on our monthly water and sewer bill, but our property taxes will be going down with the expiration of that IDD. So there's kind of that balance, and it creates a path forward for the water system for the next 10 years, so we understand where it's at, so that there's certainty for our residents. So that there's not any volatility based on rates and the like. So again, February 19th here at the Relics and Rods Hall, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. We invite the public to engage with the consultants and city staff to give your input, your thoughts, and what way you think is the best path forward. So. We also talked during the planning session about the structural deficit. We've talked about that many times here in the past as well. So just real quick, what the structural deficit is we're spending more money than we're bringing in, But we know that. Don't be alarmed. That has been a planned thing. So we're spending into our savings, but that's obviously not sustainable. And so these are our general, everyday, reoccurring operating costs that we're talking about. So salary and benefits, operation expenses, those types of things that it costs to run the city. And so because we have a structural deficit, we have to figure out how to right that course. And so we have a variety of different plans that we're taking a look at. So I'll turn it over to Jess to maybe just give a overview of how we got here and some of the path forward with that structural deficit.
Yeah, so what we're talking about here is not something that impacts city services or the community in this year or next year. We have dollars in our what we call our savings account or unencumbered funds within the community, but we are budgeting, we are spending more money in terms of providing that fire, police, parks, court, legal services, and all the support services it takes to provide those services to the community on an ongoing basis. A lot of times I get the comment after talking about this is, well, why are you looking at more revenues? Why don't you cut the budget that you have and take a look at more efficient ways of doing business? I agree. That is the absolutely that has happened. That will continue to happen. And I'd love to hear more ideas from the community or anybody else that has ideas about how we spend money and how we provide services to the community. In the end, that's the goal, right, is the service. So we have staff in the background. We purchase tools and resources and put people in place for success and provide that service to the community. So that is always the end goal. And if there's a better way of doing things, provide that service, then we want to know more about it. But what we're talking about is if we slowly start spending the dollars that we have, our unencumbered funds or our savings account is the analogy, over the course of the next few years, we're going to run out of our unencumbered funds, and we'll be left with a deficit, a structural deficit within the budget. So this is something that we have had conversations with for several years, and this has been going on for several years, and we know that, and we're budgeting towards that. So we're taking a look at other options that are out there. I refer to them as revenues. The public refers to them as taxes, and so there'll be different options that are out there. We do have conversations in terms of how that impacts the community. So we have folks in the community that are struggling, right? So maybe it's a working family of 4 and so forth that are out there. We're aware of not only the funds that the city receives, but that impact it'll have on the community and our ability to provide police, fire, parks, legal services, building services to the public. So we've engaged and asked some questions. Some of the things that are on the table would be an increase in the sales tax, the bed tax, take a look at maybe the property tax, and we've had some conversations about a commercial lease tax. We're one of 2 or 3 cities in the state that does not have a commercial lease tax. So, yeah, so that kind of handles a little bit from that perspective. Is we're trying to, again, as a nonprofit city government, we're trying to break even. We're trying to match up the expectations of the residents in terms of the services that they provide, and we have to match that up with the revenues that are coming in.
Yeah, thank you. And so we'll continue to have those conversations. We have upcoming public hearings with budget sessions. So there'll be 3 or 4 hour sessions that we'll talk about the budget and we'll look at these options as Justin and his team continue to prepare it. But when we're talking about the services that we're offering, we're talking about the essential services that our citizens are expecting from us. So we're talking about police officers and firefighters, people to maintain our parks and our roads and all of the things that we use every day. So when it comes to police services, for example, we have less officers on the street today than we did prior to the Great Recession. So, and the city has grown, but we don't have any additional monies to correct that and bring more folks up. That doesn't mean we're not a safe community. It doesn't mean our police officers aren't fantastic at what they're doing, but that's just to put it into perspective. If you look back, 10 years ago, and that's where we're at. There also has been many priorities of our citizens. So our citizens have had multiple priorities that City Council has responded to and city staff has responded to, such as adjusting and doing the positional analysis, which was a top priority for many citizens and the council, some park development over the last 5 years. So some of those things that if you look back and see the community engagement throughout that process, those were things that folks really were after. So we'll continue to monitor that and have those conversations. So please stay engaged, share your feedback with all of us, and let us know what you think is the best path forward. So we also are. So that was basically our planning session, was the two things. What's our budget going to look like? And then what's the utility rate study? So that was kind of 8 hours. We were able to tell you in about 15 minutes. So we also want to recognize the Marine Corps League. We have Kim McCoy here and Bud Watts that has been working really hard to bring the piece of the USS Arizona to Lake Havasu City. And they were very successful in doing so. And the relic has arrived in Lake Havasu City. We have it here. We are now looking for a permanent home for it that can be displayed for citizens and visitors to enjoy and take in this historical relic that really represents a piece of our history in America, and then also has connections to the great state of Arizona. The desired location is somewhere down in the English Village area or along the shoreline there where folks can see it day or night and be able to be a part of that. So we'll continue to let you all know about that, but we're hopeful to be able to have the great unveil at our 50th anniversary of the dedication of the London Bridge in October. So a big thank you to the Marine Corps League for all of your efforts, and we look forward to showing that to our citizens. So, all right, we are going to give a legislative update, but before we do that, I want to introduce my colleagues that are with me today. So we have Councilmember Nancy Campbell, welcome. We have Councilmember David Lane in the back, welcome. And then Councilmember Cameron Moses. And it's hard not to say, but we have Donna McCoy, who was a council member for a long time. And we are fortunate enough today to have Senator Borelli with us. So thank you, Senator, for coming. You want to come on up? So we'll say a few words, Senator, about the priorities of Lake Havasu City. Then we'll give our Senator Borelli a few minutes to give you an update from Phoenix. So one, we have an amazing delegation that's representing our district, led by Senator Borelli. We have Representative Cobb, who's the appropriations chair in the House, and we have Representative Biasucci. All three of them have leadership roles in the legislature, so we are well represented. They are all connected to us, and we thank you for your leadership. A couple of our priorities for Lake Havasu City are short-term rentals. Not a big surprise. We've talked about that all of the time, I think every time we've met. But there is a short-term rental bill that is making its way through the legislature right now. It remains a top priority, and it gives us some of the tools that we need as a community to help manage short-term rentals at the local level. So allows registration of short-term rentals. It allows contact information. There's some zoning pieces in there, and so we are working on with legislature to be able to get that bill passed so that we can be able to move forward. You may have read in the paper that I signed on to a letter to the CEOs of Airbnb and Expedia, asking them to stop their lobbying efforts that are preventing us from managing short-term rentals at the local level. Now, with that being said, short-term rentals have always been a thing in Lake Havasu since the 70s. That's one of our market mixes. We don't want them to go away. We just want to be able to have the ability to manage them like we did prior to the state preemption in 2016. That's where we can manage, trash and traffic and noise and all of those things that impact everyday enjoyment of your neighborhood. Do you have anything on short-term rentals? Or?
Well, that's really it. But I think it just reiterate the fact that we had a solution in place in Lake Havasu City until about, was it 2015, 2016, when the legislature prohibited cities from regulating short-term rentals. And then we got, thanks to Senator Borelli and our leadership, we got some of those tools back a couple years ago that allows us to take a look at some of the issues. But for the most part, it's kind of a hands-off approach, and that's why bills that Senator Borelli and supports and votes for will help us moving forward to ensure that the city has the ability to regulate to a certain degree. And really, all we are concerned about is that we have short-term rentals in the community, and we want those to continue, but not at the expense of the neighbors. So with noise, trash, blocking driveways, and all the visual aspects of that, we want our tourists that are enjoying short-term rentals to do so, but not at the peril of our residents.
Yeah, thank you. The other priority bills that we have working through the legislature right now is Highway 95. This has been sponsored by Representative Biasucci, but Senator Borelli, a big supporter, Representative Cobb, big supporter. It had a hearing last week in the Appropriations Committee, and it's still working its way through. But basically, this was an opportunity to get general fund appropriations to be able to resurface Highway 95, basically from I-40 all the way to Sarah Park, which is very necessary. We haven't had any upgrades to Highway 95 in over 20 years, and that there is no money in the 5-year plan for ADOT to even identify this. So really, really happy with the leadership that Senator Borelli and Representative Biasucci have shown in this area and understood that there was a need in our community and are working their way through with this bill. There also is a bill that Representative Biasucci dropped for funding for a second bridge. And so that would be a second bridge across to the island. That's still making its way through, so we're monitoring it, and we're very grateful for the state's focus on Lake Havasu, most notably with, again, Representative Biasucci and Senator Borelli and their leadership. When I first took office as mayor in 2018, it took about a year or so for us to get the right-of-ways on the mainland side to even make this bridge a reality. So now we have the right-of-way on the mainland side, we own the property on the island side, and so now we just need some sort of a funding mechanism to be able to do that. So we'll continue to monitor that bill. And then before we turn it over to Senator Borelli, I'll just turn it over to Jess to talk a little bit about the governor's proposed tax cuts and the impacts to cities on that.
Good one. Yeah, this will be a really good transition.
Yeah.
So I think, and this is just from the perspective of impacts on cities, right? Cities and towns in Arizona. We're hearing conversations from Governor Doug Ducey in terms of reducing the burden, income tax burden for residents in the state of Arizona. So that sounds pretty good, and we're supportive of those efforts. One of the elements tied to that is a reduction in state shared revenues and dollars that flow to the cities to the tune of $180 million over the course of 3 years. So the impacts to Lake Havasu City in particular, what we're looking at there is about a $1.3 million impact to Lake Havasu City over the course of 3 years. And it kind of ramps up where it's a couple $100,000 in the first year, $300,000 or $400,000 in that second year, and then the balance or a much bigger amount in that third year. So these are dollars that go into the general fund that go directly to support police, fire, and all the services, park services that we enjoy as residents. So it's something that we're taking a close look at, as we want to be supportive of his initiatives. But this directly impacts our ability to provide services to our community. How's that for an introduction?
So with that being said, so basically the story there is just cause and effect. So certainly we all support lower taxes and better way of life, but there's a cause and effect to how those things happen. But Senator Borelli, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for being here this morning. I'll turn over to you to give us an update from the Capitol.
Thank you very much. I actually just showed up because the chief says, come on down, we got free coffee. So thanks, Chief Doyle, set me up. Yes, the mayor got in 18 and caused a pandemic. And
You've been reading the wrong sources.
I'm kidding. On the governor's proposed tax cuts, I mean, there's the cause and the effect, but we'd rather have I'd rather have you with more money in your pocket so you go spend it so that way you get local TPT, see? And I'm also trying to, supporting the tourism industry so that way we bring more people in here because actually that's more local TPT. So, there's a lot of things that moving parts, but the governor's got some good proposals, and he's got some proposals that the Senate's not in favor of. We have our own tax cuts and things like that. We're trying to get our own revenue generating scheme and maneuver on things. I mean, I introduced a bill this year that, last year when we changed the tax rates on individuals, for your individual, the first $12,000 of your income taxes or your income is exempt. Well, I just introduced a bill to double that to $24,000 for a single and $48,000 for head of household. And the reason being is those $24,000 a year jobs. Actually, they make more than me, but anyway, those $24,000 a year jobs. You know who that is? May I take your order, please? Those are the people that are out there, may I take your order? And guess what? The Democrats want to pop minimum wage up to $15, but their take-home pay is going to be a lot less. I figure if we just change the income tax rate, then we don't need to go to $15 an hour, which destroys small businesses and actually ends up losing jobs. So if we just change that tax rate a little bit, so this way nobody's going to have to, we don't have to do the income tax or the minimum wage raise, but you'll put more money in your pocket, which once again spends local, and it's more TPT. So Jess here can spend more money anyway. But these are the kind of the ideas that we're kicking around, and we'll see how that works through the process. Of course, we also have the other bill Senator Gowan introduced once again. The governor pushed last year that he wanted to have the military retirees pension exempt from state income tax. Well, right now it's up to $3,500, but he wanted to do is just a total exemption on that, which makes a lot of sense because that's a serious fixed income. So Senator Gowan ran that bill this year, and it went through the Appropriations Committee unanimously, which is really surprising because most of the Democrats voted no on it last year. And of course, due to COVID and a lot of things did not get through because of COVID. We had a short session. So these are the things that we're trying to get through. I've got a bill that's trying to get, I'm asking for $25 million from the state. That would be our 35% match for a state-run by the Department of Veterans Services for a veterans home, which is basically a nursing home type of deal. And that's actually self-funded because the veteran, their benefit actually pays for the ongoing funding. So we have to have a 35% match. The federal government comes in with theirs. So I'm asking for $25 million because that's 100 beds. But that also equates to over 100 employees, full-time employees. That's just not only just healthcare workers, but just even on the logistics side, the cooks, bakers, candlestick makers, if you will. That's something that I'm trying to get. There's two sites that we're looking at. One is up in Kingman. It's a nice site. But then there's one down here in Havasu that I'm looking at, which I really favor really good, and so does Leo. But that comes down to the Department of Veterans Services on how they want to handle that. But I'm trying to push that through. I do know that's in our Senate version of the budget. I got to make sure that it stays in the House version in the budget. And of course, the governor knows that, his staff knows that I will take a long vacation if it doesn't stay in there, and I won't be there for budget night. So anyway, I'm just kind of kidding. So who's on camera here? Just kidding. I'm not gonna go on vacation. But these are the kind of things that we're trying to get through. Highway 95. Once again, you know, it's always a big fight with Department of Transportation on trying to get some things in there. We're competing with the state of Maricopa because the majority of the legislators have come from the Phoenix area, and they want to hang on to every dollar. And they hang on to that quarter, and they squeeze that quarter so much the eagle screams, and they forget about rural Arizona, that we are the gateway to Arizona. And every dollar that we put in transportation, you know, we make 2 and 3. So it just depends on the scenario. But these are the things that we're constantly fighting for. You know, the big benefit is that Leo Biasucci, hometown guy, he's the majority whip in the House, and Regina Cobb from Kingman, who is the appropriations chair. So, of course, I'm the majority whip in the Senate. So we have some leverage there, and actually we have a lot of leverage, but, you know, we just got to, sometimes you got to make that leverage not break. So it's a balance. Anyway, I'm going babbling on because obviously too much coffee, so.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Senator Briley. And Senator Briley talks about the Veterans Home, which we're fully supportive of. We also would favor like Havasu, but if it's in Kingman, we're still supportive of it because it would help our citizens. But it looks like, Senator, there's a few questions that we can take for you. We'll start here, and then we'll make our way through. Yes, sir.
Senator, what's going on with the fiasco of the vote? Kelly Ward and...
Here, so everybody else can hear.
So I want to know what's going on with the fiasco from the vote and the investigation that Kelly Ward is involved in, and you're also involved in all this. So what's going on?
Thank you. That's a good question. There's two different subjects there. The issue with Kelly Ward, she is the state party chair. There's some members there that were asking for a recount, and that's her thing, and that's a state party thing. I stay out of that one, but on the state of Arizona, the election integrity investigation that we were involved in, Back on November 30th, there was a joint and informal, if you will, because it really wasn't sanctioned by the House or the Senate, but we held a joint House and Senate hearing downtown in Phoenix, where we had members of both chambers, the Senate and the House, and Mayor Giuliani was there testifying, and we had hundreds of people come and testify, and these are witnesses that signed affidavits under penalty and perjury. Now, this is a federal election, so they signed an affidavit under penalty and perjury for federal levels, which means if they lie, that's mandatory 5 years. So once again, you have witnesses that come forward, they're testifying under oath, they signed affidavits under oath, so that helped us open up another investigation. Now, like I said, it was done out in town, downtown Phoenix, which worked out really good, because if we would have had it in the state house, we would have had COVID restrictions, and we would only been able to do it via Zoom. So we did it at a private venue, which was great because we had a heck of a lot more people there. It was more free and open to testify. We had enough probable cause there for me to spur a Senate hearing, which we did. We had a Senate hearing and the judiciary hearing. So we got enough where we actually had the Maricopa County supervisors testifying, because let's face it, Maricopa County is the biggest county. This is where the biggest vote count is, and this is where most of the alleged fraud was testified on. So we had them in the committee, of course, and that, once again, that was done via Zoom, which was really difficult to get through. But so we had that. So during the course of the hearing, we had some certain questions. And one of the biggest concerns that I have about the election is let's just forget about who wins or loses on this one. But the idea or the fact that if those devices, the counting devices, were hooked up to the internet, and that data left the count center, the voting center, and ended up in cyberspace, that automatically is a federal crime. And if it ended up in hyperspace, and the allegations are that that's where the votes got switched around in cyberspace and other countries, that's a national security issue. I can't sit down and relax for that. I got to keep pushing. I'm a retired Marine. I took an oath when I was 18 years old. That was a long time ago, and there's no expiration date on that oath. But that's a national security issue. Because if we have foreign interference in our elections, and we don't nip this in the bud now, we're done as a republic. Remember, 4 years ago, in Washington, D.C., they went after President Trump over Russian collusion, spent $43 million on that investigation, which turned up nothing. But now we have probable cause evidence that this actually is a fact in this election. So this is something that needs to be investigated. I'm not letting go on this. So where we are on this now, we had a hearing, and we issued subpoenas to the Maricopa County supervisors to give us access to the Dominion voting system and access to the physical ballots and digital copies of the ballots. So this way we can screen through it to make sure that number one, there's no counterfeit ballots. That's the other allegation, that ballots got flown in from someplace and they're basically counterfeit and they were run through the machine. So we need to make sure that those physical ballots were not tampered with and there's no counterfeit ballots in there. We want to make sure that nothing was manipulated through the machine, the Dominion device, the whole system. Nothing that was hooked up to the internet that went out into cyberspace. We need to find that out once and for all. And like I said, once we get done with this, with Maricopa County, and if we find more evidence and it actually is a fact, I want that expanded to all the counties in Arizona, because they just didn't target Maricopa County. And that's that kind of fraud none of us should sit with. And I don't care who wins or loses on that one. The fact is that none of our elections should be manipulated and stolen by anybody, because it disenfranchises your vote, your vote, your vote, your vote. So where we are on this right now, the county supervisors decided to defy our subpoena. And we're on actually very uncharted territory, because this really never happened in Arizona, and nobody can ever remember this. The last time the Senate or the legislature issued a subpoena was just to appear in committee. But now we actually subpoenaed a whole elective body, the county supervisors. And now what they did, they decided to challenge us in court. and try to block our subpoena and not comply. Of course, it went back and forth to the courts. Once the lawyers get involved, it slows things down. So the last hearing that they had with the judge said, because the county says, well, we can't give up the ballots, we can't do this, we can't do that, and they're asking too much. And the judge said, well, they have a right to subpoena, and they have a legal right to everything that they want. Even the Attorney General wrote an amicus brief agreeing with the Senate that we have plenary authority, and we are the authority on elections, and not the court's purview. So the judge basically told the county and said, told their lawyers and our lawyers, you better get in a room and figure out what you guys are comfortable with, because, you know, if you don't, then I guess I'll rule. And of course, their attorney said, well, you know, why do we want to put this off? And the judge said, well, I can rule right now. He said, okay, well, we'll get back to the room. So anyway, I know I'm kind of going a long round about this, but there's a lot of misinformation in the newspaper. But the judge basically said, I can rule right now. And they said, no, we'll get in a room. And of course, they tried to make some agreements, but they were false agreements. They kept moving the goalposts on us. So finally, once again, they're still in that defiance mode. Yesterday, 2 days ago, every Republican senator signed on to a resolution to hold the county supervisors in contempt. And now what we voted on yesterday was to waive the rules, instead of going to committee to expedite things. We voted on that to expedite the rules, so that way we can just go to on a floor vote as early as Monday if need be. And we're hoping that they just comply. But they're putting out a lot of false information out there, and they're calling us a bunch of liars, but the information they're actually saying is a lie. And I will tell them to their face. So if they're recording it, Supervisor Maricopa County, stop lying to the public. So you can publish that. But these are the things that's going on right now. It's a lot of political gamemanship. They're digging in and trying to defy us. Like I said, in history, Eddie Farnsworth was the committee chairman when last session, then we had the hearing. He issued the subpoena along with the support and authorization from President Fan. And of course, then we had a new session. We had a new chairman. Warren Peterson issued a new subpoena to renew it. And so they keep saying, Eddie said, I've been here for 18 years and we've never issued a subpoena. But now we're going after the full body. Now, I think that's the first in Arizona history. You know, it's really not one of them good firsts you really want to have. But right now, what the argument right now is, the big fight is this. It breaks it right down to this. And no disrespect, okay? And I was on the city council too, and I understand this. But right now we have a power struggle of a political subdivision challenging the sovereign authority of the state legislature. The states make up the federal government. It's in our Constitution that way. We have plenary authority on elections. That's a states' rights issue that was retained and enshrined in the Constitution. This is our right. States retain that. We have absolute right to what we are asking for. We can delegate authority, but not the overall responsibility on us on elections. So we delegate that authority to the counties to run the elections, but the overall responsibility falls on the legislature. So right now we have a power struggle of a political subdivision challenging the direct sovereign authority of the state legislature. And the argument is this: what line do we draw that we stand on? Because what's next? A city council? A school district? A fire district? What's the point of us electing me to go to Phoenix to fight for you to make sure that other cities are not trampling on your rights, or school districts not trampling on your rights? What's the point of me going there if I don't stand up and say, wait a minute, we're the bottom line here and the buck stops here? So it's amazing how it's ironic that even the Democrats won't even support this issue. And it's not about the election. The election is about a political subdivision challenging the direct sovereign authority of the state legislature. So did I answer that? I know I went a long way around the bush, but.
So we'll take one last question for the senator, and then we'll take it back to the city issues.
No, it's all right. I have 3 questions for you.
One day you get one. Yeah.
You're not going to get away that easy. 1, what are we doing with the H.R. 127, Second Amendment rights for firearms? What are you doing about that?
What'd you say?
What are you doing about Second Amendment for firearms?
The bill that's out there and it's coming out, H.R. 127.
Well, that's a federal.
Yeah.
Does that have anything to do with you?
No,
Okay.
no. But in Arizona, we say we protect the Second Amendment. We get to keep our guns and our plastic straws. They're not taking it. So,
My other question, the bridge itself. Are you funding everything completely for the whole completion of the bridge without using taxpayers' money?
Yeah. So for the House bill that is put in front of us for the London Bridge direct funding, the question is that using not taxpayer monies? I think Dave means local because the state's taxpayer dollars too, just not local dollars, but that's still to be determined. So it's still working its way through committee, and you'll have to see what that looks like as it works through. But as the bill's currently presented with Representative Biasucci's framework is yes, it would pay for it in its entirety. That doesn't mean that's what's going to happen, but.
and here's one of the arguments that I make, and I'm helping Leo make, and hopefully he gets it out of the House and comes over to the Senate. Look, when you break it down to this, it's nice to have and need to have. And a lot of people think, oh, just having a second bridge on the island is a nice to have. Technically, that's a need to have. If there's a medical emergency on the island and there's a wreck on the bridge, medical can't get through. If there's a shootout going on, Chief Doyle's going to be frustrated because he can't get through. This is a need to have, and it's long overdue. And that bridge is starting to fall apart. London Bridge is falling down. Okay. But these are the things that need to happen. And like I said, it's a public safety issue. And this is one of these things that needs to be had, and has to be told. But anyway, it's just about how we define the argument. And you got to break it down to common sense. Unfortunately, there's no common sense around there.
Thank you, Senator. And again, thank you for your leadership in Phoenix. Thanks for being here. I think, was that? All right. But the London Bridge is structurally sound. We do have a study for that. So I just want to make sure there is a study that says it's structurally sound. All right. A couple of other things. We'll talk a little bit about job creation. We have been very successful over the last year with job creation. PMG we've talked about previously. That's the light manufacturing that went into the old Kmart building on McCulloch. In 5 years, they'll have over 250 employees at that facility. They are hiring now, and last count I heard, they had 45 employees already hired from our local community. So very excited for PMG, and we thank them for their investment in our community. And then we also did a rezoning maybe a month ago, of the old Hastings building, which is going to allow for Speed UTV to move in, which is going to be an off-road vehicle sales center led by Robbie Gordon of the NASCAR Hall of Fame, a great community partner, and we're so excited to have him here as well. One of the good things about vehicle sales is they have good sales tax contributions, so those types of commercial activities actually help us secure the needs of our citizens. So very excited about those, and that's 275 jobs I just talked about in literally 30 seconds, and we're continuing to stay focused on job creation. We also have some road construction that you may see if you drive a Coma, most specifically between Smoke Tree and South Palo Verde. There's a bunch of cones up. That's going to be the installation of the Hawk, which we've talked about several times at our coffee with the mayor and city manager. I'll turn it over to Jess to talk about what a Hawk is and why it's going there.
I'm pausing. HAWK, H-A-W-K, is an acronym that I don't remember what it stands for. But essentially, what you're looking at, what a HAWK is, it's a stoplight or a signal for pedestrians. So we start looking at some dollars that the city receives through our metropolitan organization, our MPO, and we are able to identify projects in certain locations through the community. Unfortunately, we can only spend dollars in areas for projects where there's been after the fact, where there's been accidents or fatalities, and in this particular location, we had a handful of occurrences where we had a pedestrian being struck by a vehicle. Thankfully, it wasn't significant, but obviously any accident in that regard, a pedestrian versus a vehicle, is of concern. So we're looking at, we're able to receive dollars, not general fund dollars, not city taxpayer dollars, but through our MPO, we're able to bring some dollars in and put up a signal light for pedestrians in that area to mitigate any future accidents. So you walk up and you hit the button, and then the light turns red for the vehicles, and the pedestrian is able to safely cross. But that's the only way that that signal is triggered, by a pedestrian hitting that button.
Yeah, so that particular area on Acoma, there's just a slight hill, but just a hill enough that you could run into somebody, unfortunately. And we worked in partnership with the school district. That's a very strong crossing area for students heading to Smoke Tree Elementary School. And so that was why that area was identified to have the first hawk. And as Jess mentioned, it's federal grant dollars through the MPO, so no impact to the local budget. And this, because it's federal tax dollars, I think we've been working on it for like 5 years. So if it was the city, we would have had it done last year for sure. Yeah, we would have had it done in 1 year. Yeah, so it wouldn't have taken us 4. Also, talking about the MPO, Vinny Gallego has been our MPO director for about 4 years now, I think, 3 or 4 years. Has led the efforts with the MPO. What the MPO is it's the Metropolitan Planning Organization. It had to be created based on federal legislation that when a community hits 50,000 people, you have to have an MPO. And so we have to have it. And but he has taken a position in Central Arizona, so he's going to be leaving us. And we will be looking for a new MPO director. So you may see some of that in conversations or in the newspaper coming forward. We'll just talk about 2 more things, and then we'll open it up to our citizens for any questions you may have. We'll talk about the noise ordinance. We do have a noise ordinance review coming up in front of council. What the intent of this is, and back in 2007 was the first time that the city put in a noise ordinance. We were having a lot of issues with light manufacturing areas crossing over into residential areas, some of the entertainment districts crossing over into some of the residential areas. And what we found in those days is that as the city started to infill, so as more people were getting closer and closer together, that some of the noise that was created by bars and restaurants or the light manufacturing was causing an issue for citizens. So we put in a noise ordinance. It was very controversial at the time, but it seemed to have worked and have some balance. Now what we're going to take a look at, and I'll let Jess talk about A and C scale because I don't know anything about that, but we're going to take a look at residential noise ordinance. Most specifically when it comes to the short-term rentals is what really brought this up. Is that, you know, when people are in a short-term rental, that's great. I stay up a little bit later too when I'm on vacation. And in our desert, just having a normal conversation at these normal levels, it carries. And so if you have to go to work in the morning or you go to bed at 9 o'clock and they're out at the pool, it's a really large issue for our citizens. So we think we have a solution for it. I'll just talk about the scales behind it and what that conversation looks like.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. There's a twofold with the noise ordinance that'll be before the city council on Tuesday night. So 6 o'clock, come to the council meeting and or view it through Channel 4 or online. And so the noise ordinance itself is really what we're trying to target is the noise that's occurring in the residential areas. And if you talk to Chief Doyle, if you talk to the city, we're not talking about trying to put the hammer down with a family and the kids are making some noise and splashing in the back pool area within reason, right? But we're trying to put some tools in place so that noise that occurs at maybe a short-term rental or somebody that's rambunctious that night does not cause concern for the neighbors. And that's really what it comes down to. Let's be respectful of our neighbors. Let's turn the volume down at appropriate times and so forth. So essentially what we're doing is we're taking the decibel readings for the residential areas or sounds emitted from the residential areas, not the commercial areas, just the residential areas, and making sure that we're able to lower those to a level that's moderate, right? And so that's part of that conversation there too. So, and it's all about the noise emitting from one location. So if you're in a residential area and you're hearing noises from a commercial area, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about noise emanating from a residential area to another residence. Neighbors, let's be kind, let's be respectful, whether you're here for the weekend or throughout the year. And then, Mayor, you alluded to the other portion of the noise ordinance is there's an A scale when you take a decibel meter, and there's a C scale. A scale is what we're all accustomed to, and that's what we've been utilizing through our police department as a city since the inception of our noise ordinance, and that picks up noise levels like we're all accustomed to. What the A scale does not pick up is the big booming bass noises. So, that the introduction of a C scale and giving tools and resources to our officers and to the police department about being able to have 2 different readings on a decibel meter that can accompany the normal noise that you would hear, but also in certain instances you have these the music, and you're not necessarily bothered by the noise or the lyrics, so to speak, but the big booming bass that can occur. And now, so we'll have the ability to, if council chooses to go in that direction, the availability to put those tools and resources in the hands of our police department, and be able to take a closer look at that to again. Be kind to your neighbor is really what we're trying to accomplish here.
Yeah, thank you. And then today's paper had a big spread about transit, so we just wanted to touch on transit for a minute. When we say the word transit, it eludes lots of different thoughts from people. Some people remember the bus system we had that had 90 routes that were driving around our community empty for several years. Others think it's the most critical need for their ability to get around our community. And what we were looking to do is try to find that hybrid that would work for everybody. And so what, through a transit study that was commissioned by the Metropolitan Planning Organization, the MPO, went over, it was an 18-month process to look at our transit system and what would be the best use of taxpayer dollars to implement this transit system. So the good news is the transit system that we have today, which is Havasu Mobility, basically it's somebody schedules a ride or calls for a ride. It has to be scheduled, unfortunately, because it's so popular, but it takes citizens that need to their doctor's appointments and to shopping for groceries. And that's really the limit that they can have, because there's so much demand on that system. So what we pay for that we worked for several opportunities on the council to be able to find general fund dollars to make that bare bones happen. It works great. People that use it love it. They would like more opportunity to get on it quicker than having to make the reservations, but it does work. Now, the transit system we're talking about now would create two fixed-based route systems. So basically a central one that goes along the downtown area, grabbing students that go to MCC and ASU, and also kind of the work corridor. And then the one that goes north-south, basically taking residents out to Walmart in the mall area. And then the rest of it would be a micro-transit system, which is similar to the rideshare apps that many of us may use, where a citizen can call and within their zone say, I need a ride from my home to my doctor's or my home to Dollar General or wherever it may be. If it's within their same zone, so if they live in the zone and their destination's in the same zone, that vehicle will take them from their home to their destination. If it's not within the same zone, it'll take it to a central meeting location, which then they'll get on to either the fixed route system, which is only two, or they'll get on to another mode to get them where they need to go. So this is innovation in transit. The great news for us is that all of this gets to happen without any additional monies coming from the general fund. These are all federal transit dollars that if we were not to use or take advantage of, they would go to other communities in the state of Arizona. So these are transit dollars that are allocated for the state. From there, they're allocated to the communities. If we did not use those dollars, they go to other communities to use them. So again, no impact to our general fund at all, and we get to increase the service for our citizens. And this service is based on community input, an 18-month community input process for users and fans of transit and foes of transit. So I mean, every voice was heard as we put this together. So you and the article today really focused a lot on the buses that were purchased and the Ford Edges that were purchased, and didn't talk about source of income, where that came from, and that all came from federal grant dollars is how those things were paid. I don't know if I missed anything on that, Jess, or? No,
I think just maybe to put the cherry on top, I guess, to it, maybe explain it in this regard, because it was just this week where every year I get a letter that's addressed to to myself. It comes from the transit division at ADOT, and it says, Lake Havasu City, do you want $800,000 to spend on transit? And for the first 2 years that I was here, my response is, it literally says, your appropriation, your request amount is $800-some-thousand. How much of this money do you want? Fill in the blank and sign your name. The first 2 times I received that letter in Lake Havasu City, I put 0 and signed my name and had to send it in. And then we went through the transit study and so forth. And now, for the second year in a row, I'm able to write in a number of $800,000, sign my name, and turn that in. So what those dollars are dollars that would otherwise go to other transit systems, Prescott or the Maricopa County transit systems out there. But we're able to keep those dollars here in Lake Havasu City. So we're able to take the exact same amount of level of dollars that we have here in Lake Havasu City, and no increase to the budget, and we're able to introduce some services that can get people to school and community college and ASU, get to the hospital, get to appointments, do their shopping, and really trying to target the students and those that don't have the ability to do just that, or maybe for the first time they have the ability to go to work and hold a steady job. So just want to kind of put that in perspective. That just happened this week, and happy to do that for the second time in the last 4 years.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so we're going to turn it over to questions that we have. But before we do that, I do want to thank Vice Mayor Jenny Koch, who is with us. I mentioned earlier that we're doing a hybrid today. So we have folks socially distanced here at the Relics and Rods Hall, and then we also have folks that are joining us via Facebook Live and other means. And Vice Mayor Jenny Koch is joining us there. So thank you for joining us, Vice Mayor. Dave. And then Councilmember Lane is going to walk around with a microphone.
Can I have the chief to respond to this?
Sure. Yeah.
Chief, I have a question for you on the noise for our citizens. Your officers, when you have a complaint on a neighbor who constantly turns up his stereo system and is audible and sits there for a half hour, really annoys in the neighborhood. You can hear it through the whole neighborhood. When we report this to the police department, the police officer comes out, if he has time, because it's really not a real priority. But when he does come over, they know when to turn it off. Then when the officer talks to us about it, he won't go next or wherever where it's at, and he will not respond to go over and talk to the neighbor and have that straightened out. He won't go there. Can you explain to me why he can't do that?
Actually, no, I can't explain that. I mean, the majority of our contacts on noise complaints, we've actually been reviewing all our statistics now, especially when we're dealing with the noise ordinance. We deal with approximately 1,000 noise complaints a year. We actually document and contact the people. In your case, I can't tell you why, because all the cases I've reviewed, we've contacted the location that the complaint is originating from. So what I would ask you to do is, if you contact me after and give me your specific situation, we can take a look at, because there's no reason when an officer comes out on a noise complaint, what we're going to do is, if it's still ongoing, we'll take a decibel reading. If it's a violation of the noise ordinance, then we can deal with that. If it's not a violation, then we can go over, we can still contact them and should contact them to say, we're getting complaints from your neighbors. If you could turn it down and make that contact and try to gain compliance, even if there's not a violation of the noise ordinance. So they should be contacting. If you've had an incident where they didn't, and it didn't happen, then come see me. We can pull up the record. All the officers wear cameras, so we can tell exactly what they did on that call.
But I've had officers several times, at least 3 times, approximately about 3 times, they won't go and take care of what you just mentioned.
So they told you I refuse to go talk to the...
That's true, yes.
Okay, well, the nice thing about that is I'll review their body camera footage, and if they did tell you that, we'll deal with it.
Well, the only thing about it is only one officer did have the camera on.
Oh, he told you his camera wasn't on?
No, he said it was on, and he was recording my conversation.
Okay, well, they don't always tell you. Their camera's always on, so it'll be on all 3. We'll take a look at that.
So water, the town, I mean, the city, the number of building going up. Riviera is in the process of going ahead. What's going on with the water situation? You were going to drill a new well, you were going to rebuild the existing water system. What's going on there?
Yeah, great question. So in regards to water, Lake Havasu City has water resources allocated for about 96,000 residents. Lake Havasu City is fairly fortunate because we know what our growth is going to be, what the opportunity is, because we are surrounded by federal and or state lands or topography that's going to dictate what our growth is going to be. So 96,000 is going to be what that would look like with land. The Riviera is within the boundaries of the water district for Lake Havasu City, so that's within that development. Recently, you alluded to the council did take action for a secondary well. And so that's going to allow us to take our rainy well offline and be able to maintain it. I'm going to turn it over to Jess to talk a little bit about the technical side of that, but we do have sources to maintain the water. We do have water resources available in our community, but if you want to talk about that.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so in terms of the big picture, when you mentioned water, I think it's important to know that we have enough water to grow. So we're not concerned with the development that's occurring. Every time we permit a new house, a new business, and so forth, we have the water availability, the water allotment to maintain that. There's been a lot of planning over the last several decades by the city to make sure that we're in a good spot right now. In terms of the dollars that are being spent right now, for drilling of additional wells, it is not for additional water. It is so that we have a backup supply to our current system. So right now, the water that we receive, 97% of the water we receive that we see through our faucet comes through the rainy well, which is over on the island at London Bridge Beach Park, and there's a line that goes underneath the channel, underneath the water, to connect to the city to make sure that we get water coming from that area. Goes to the treatment plant, goes to the water tanks, comes to our faucets in our homes and our businesses. We want to make sure that if there's an occurrence that happens at that location, that we have a backup plan, and so that the services are uninterrupted for the residents and for the businesses. Also allows us to take our main well offline and pull water from a different location, so that we can shut that down and maintain it, fix it, and make sure that the dollars that we spent to put that well in place is well maintained, and we can extend the life of that well for the future. Is that helpful?
The water for 96,000 people, is that at a conservation rate similar to what the Vegas Valley does?
The 96,000 people, is that at a conservation? I don't know if I understand, Councilmember Lane.
In the Vegas Valley, they've done extensive water conservation, and it's greatly increased their capacity, basically. Is the 96,000 based on just current consumption?
Yes, the 96,000 is based on current consumption rates. Lake Havasu City is the leader in conservation. When it comes to conservation, although the Las Vegas Valley has done a lot, they've had to do a lot because they weren't so great at it before. We've been great at it the whole time, and so and we'll continue to be great at it. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And a couple other things on water, just real quick. There was a letter to the editor in today's paper that said, well, why do you want to get to 96,000 people, or why do you want to grow? What our job as city leaders are to do is to ensure that we're planning correctly, because if it's going to happen, and if we don't plan for it correctly, zoning regulations would be weird, and we'd have weird stuff in our community. So we have to plan for it. And then there was another article in today's paper about water transfers. So that's something completely separate. Our allocation is our allocation, but we are also on the forefront of fighting water transfers and protecting the Colorado River main stem. And so there's two different tracks on water here, and we continue to have a seat at the table each way. I'm the chairman of CRISCO, which is the Clean Colorado River Coalition, which takes basically the entire main stem of the Colorado River with all of the partners, including Clark County. And then I'm also the representative for the Mojave County Water Authority, so working in tandem on water protection for our area. So, Councilmember Lane, and then we'll move up and get your questions.
Thank you. Good morning. One question is, could you give us a update on the courthouse and how much money we've spent on that? The other is a comment regarding the bridge. If it's going to be funded, my question is, because you've seen the picture in the paper on last Sunday of our beautiful channel that's filling in and needs to be dredged. In the past, I've brought this issue up, and the council has decided not to address that issue about the filling in. And my question is, why does it, if we're not going to dredge it and keep it open for our cash cow, why do we need a bridge? Why don't we just put a 4-lane highway in and reconnect the island, which was not an island to begin with? Why don't we just reconnect it and put a 4-lane highway and save a lot of money doing it that way? Let the water flow under it through conduits of concrete and turn it into a one-entry channel, which would be less dredging requirements. And basically, we'd copy what we have going up above Highway 40. They're doing it, our boaters go up there by the thousands to go up at Pirates Cove to go beaching up there, so it could still be open. And our channel is continuing to have more floating docks in there now, which makes it harder for the boaters to get in and out of it. And like I said, if you look at that picture on Sunday, the south end of our channel is really dredged in now and getting closed in. If we don't address that, then I see no reason to put a bridge where we could just put a new road in. But
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, thank you for your question. So when it comes to the courthouse, we purchased the property at 92 Acoma for the new courthouse. Just a little bit of background information. We're currently in the county courthouse building over on College Drive. We had a consolidated court system for nearly 25 years, which basically meant we consolidated services, staff, and resources. But the space out at College Drive is limited, and we only have access to one courtroom. And it's not enough, not only for our court system, but also for the Superior Court and the Justice Court, which also shares space there. So in August of 31st of 2019, we basically deconsolidated in place. And so we're there as a tenant, but we needed to find an alternative. We looked at a variety of different places. So we looked at current availability, leasing space, building on the City Hall complex, and then this opportunity came available at 92 Acoma, which just is adjacent to the Lake Havasu City municipal building property. It actually is even connected with the sidewalk. It couldn't have been more perfect. In our current CIP budget, we have $7.5 million budgeted for a new courthouse. We were able to buy this courthouse, or buy the new courthouse at 92 Acoma for $3 million. And once we do the tenant improvements, we'll have savings to our taxpayers of nearly $3 million from what was already approved in the CIP. So this is such a great opportunity for bringing the court to an area that is centralized and also has savings already built in for our taxpayers based on what was already approved in the budget. It also, a lot of people think the court's just the court. There's other folks that go to the court, mostly our city prosecutor's office and our police department. And now this is adjacent to both of those facilities as well. So our increased efficiency will be there for staffing. We'll also be able to, Chief Doyle has been gracious enough to allow us to use the council chambers, which we take ownership of. It's really his training room, and we've been there for 25 years on loan. We'll now be able to have council chambers inside the courthouse that doubles as a courtroom. So, you know, most of our business takes place in the evening when citizens can engage with us. Most of the court business happens during the daytime when we don't need it. So we'll be able to use a double facility there as well. And there will be shared resources with conference rooms and all those other things with facilities we already own. So it's really a good benefit for our taxpayers. When it comes to the channel and the channel dredging, we have been working on that most recently with a Tiger grant with the Chemehuevi Indian tribe. The tribes have a little bit more ability to get federal grant monies than cities and towns do, but we're a partner with them to dredge the channel. We understand the channel needs to be dredged, but if anyone's ever been involved on anything within Lake Havasu on water, you know there's so many organizations and so many agencies and so many people that say they have jurisdiction that it's just not that easy to go in and dredge. The floating docks that you alluded to, those are all approved by the Army Corps of Engineers, a federal agency. So those are those meet all of those requirements, and so we're kind of fitting in with those and those partners. The dredging of the channel, we understand it's an issue, and we are focused on it with our federal partners. So, thank you. Sonia, or?
Oh, I was just going to ask about when you were talking about the water. Our population is somewhere around 52,000 now?
53 was the last, but I use 55,000 as population. We should get some good census data from last year's census coming shortly to know. But yeah, somewhere in the 53 to 55 right now. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. To add to that, our census population is about 55,000, but we provide services from a PD, fire perspective, all the city services, to 75 to 80,000 people. So the census identifies our permanent full-time residents right now, but at any given time, any given moment, we have another 20 to 30,000 people that are in Havasu, and we're, as a city, we're providing services to them. So I talked about a third of the census identifies our housing stock as vacant. Well, there's people in those houses on an ongoing basis. So our population 55,000, but add another 20 to 30,000 to that number on any given day.
Yeah, thank you.
So
Yes.
we have the building for the courthouse. When is it going to be a courthouse?
Yeah, great question. So timing is we have an RFP out on the street right now. I believe something should come to council on the RFP for the tenant improvements. Would you say March, April? Yeah, about 60 days or so, we should have that RFP to come before council. But once, and if council approves that, then they'll be able to work on the plans for it. 18 months or so, I would say. I mean, it's obviously a priority for us. We'd like to get it, no sense in having taxpayer investments in things that we're not using. So it's definitely a priority for us, but we have to go through the proper channels. So, Sonia?
I was just wondering, I know you guys are doing a great job on the chip seal, I think it's called, but why, I'm just curious, on Chemawavy, like half the street, up to a certain point, it's all done, and then you have a strip that's done on one side and a strip that's done on the other, and the center is just nothing.
Well, we do
What
that
is-
to keep you wondering. So, yeah, if it made sense, then, yeah, so I will actually, do you have an answer, Jess? I don't have an answer. I'd have to look at Chemawavy specifically, but.
Yeah, I'd have to take a look at that specifically, but we do what we can in terms of the resources that we have to provide there too. And that particular street, why are 2 lanes chip sealed and not the center? I'd have to take a closer look at it. Sometimes that's the road was in disrepair in those other 2 lanes, and so then we're able to identify. Let me say this: every single year, we identify a certain number of miles that we use for the chip seal program, and this year we're increasing the level of fog seal application that we're going to have within the community as well too. But all of those are dependent upon a scientific approach in terms of which roads need it the most, and in some cases it's which lanes need it the most.
Yeah, so this year we've actually been able to increase the number of roadways. We generally like to do about 10% of the roadways a year. I think this year we're going to get 16 or 17%? Yeah. 16% of all of our roads are going to have some sort of treatment done on them. So we're going to take this last question. We have to end just a few minutes early. I have a hard stop for a meeting I have to be at 10. So sorry, I normally don't like to rush, but we're going to have to take this last question.
Thank you, Mayor, and all of you that are here. I'm glad to hear about the noise ordinance, but I'm telling you the bass on a boombox is no comparison to the tannerite that's going on in our desert. It's against the law to do it on state land and on BLM land. People that are doing it can get a $1,000 fine. The problem is that we're selling it here in Havasu, but it comes with no warning label, okay? So our animals are shaking. It's so disruptive. My equestrian friends can't ride anymore. So I want to put a little bee in your ear about Apache Junction. They were able, for their city, to ban it because of the noise and the disturbance. So I'd like, if they were able to do it, I don't see why Havasu can't step up and do it too.
Yeah, thank you, Christine. Christine has been very passionate on desert cleanups, the equestrian area, and so thank you for your leadership on that. And I'll take a look at Apache Junction and see the actions that they've done, and that's what we do. We start conversations. So as always, it's such an honor to serve as your mayor of Lake Havasu City. Thank you so much for engaging with us. To those online, thank you for joining us this morning. We look forward to our next meeting. Obviously, with the set of circumstances now, we don't know where we're going to be next month, but we'll be somewhere, either virtually or in person. So just stay tuned and follow us on Facebook and our social media to find out where we're going to be. But again, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and have a great day. Thank you.